Hey everybody, it's MLB Now, home edition. Brian Kenny back here with you, and we're with Mike Petriello of MLB.com. Mike, great to have you back on the show.
It is so great to be on the show and talking to adults and not my children. I'm very excited about this.
Like I talk to my children, but they're like older, so they're not like babies. You have babies, and that's tougher, I guess.
A 4-year-old and a 1-year-old who's just learned to walk and enjoys destroying my home. They're wonderful. I love them. I also love this break.
Sure. Yeah. Well, good. Let's get into the Dream Bracket, MLB Dream Bracket presented by DraftKings. We're down to the final four right now. We've got an American League final, a National League final. And Mike, it gets down to, it's not chalk exactly, but it's almost as expected. Yankees, Red Sox, Reds and Dodgers. Give me your overall view of what's happened so far.
Yeah, there's a pretty clear bias in this towards teams with very long histories, right? Because obviously these rosters, 26 men per team, they're pulling from the best players over the entire history of these teams. So, expansion teams from 93 or 98, they really just have a hard time competing, and some of them did well. But when you get down to the final four and you end up with Dodgers, Reds, Yankees, Red Sox, that's just about the least surprising thing in the world. Because if you look at the way these rosters are spread out, for example, the Yankees, their outfield, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, and Babe Ruth. You've got Babe Ruth on the same team as you've got Derek Jeter, as you've got Paul O'Neill and Roger Maris. It's really cool just to see over 100 years of baseball, more than that really, how you can get these incredible rosters. This goes for all four of these teams. Obviously, the Yankees are the ones that stand out just because Mantle, DiMaggio, Ruth, I don't know that you could come up with a better team outfield than that.
No. And Lou Gehrig is a top 5 player of all time.
Right.
Even though it's Ruth and Gehrig, but Gehrig on his own is like a better hitting Stan Musial. So and that's way up there. The Red Sox, though, it's the same sort of thing where, yeah, that's a great team, but you are adding, it's insane, of course, Ted Williams and Jimmy Double X Fox on top of Wade Boggs, who, his on base and his batting average can transcend any era.
Yeah, that's right. And especially if you were to go and look at the Red Sox pitching rotation, the way this works is it's not just the entirety of every season that a guy played for that team. It's a selection of the 3 best seasons of that team, and that's how the simulation works. So when you think about Pedro Martinez, you could take his entire career, and that's very good. But Pedro Martinez's top 3 seasons are maybe the 3 best pitching seasons in the history of baseball, right? Like that 99 to 2001 range. And then, you've got Roger Clemens and literally Cy Young on top of that. I think this may have been the best pitching staff in the American League. When we get to the Dodgers in a second, I think that one tops it. But what I'm really fascinated to see, and I really, really pray this happens, is if you look at the second line on that Red Sox pitching roster, Babe Ruth is there. Obviously, Babe Ruth is playing in the outfield for the Yankees. There is a chance we will get Babe Ruth pitching to Babe Ruth, which would entertain me to no end. I have no idea how that would end, but I can't wait to see.
If you could design it, do you design it?
No, I don't.
But if you could design it, you would design that, right?
Of course. What's the point of having something like this if you can't come up with weird scenarios? And since they do use the DH, right, you can't have guys will play for more than one team, right? But you can't have Tom Seaver Reds facing Tom Seaver Mets because there's a DH. However, Babe Ruth was a pitcher and a hitter. This is the only scenario in this entire tournament where this could happen. There's no way to rig it. There's no way to force that to happen. But if anybody is watching who's actually running this thing, please make that happen. I really want to see that happen.
Even to be like historically accurate, Babe Ruth should walk Babe Ruth. He gets on first, and Babe Ruth picks off Babe Ruth, and he gets caught stealing second, like in the 26 World Series. There we go.
That would be great. I don't know if there's any way for this game to make people call their shot, but if you can do that, let's make that happen too.
I want to throw one thing in there on the Yankee pitching staff because, right, the Red Sox pitching staff, I'm not even sure if you mentioned Lefty Grove, the greatest pitcher of all time.
Right.
Like as Grove is Pedro Clemens, Cy Young, Lefty Grove, who's the greatest pitcher of all time. Maybe Walter Johnson, sure. But the Yankees do have these guys who didn't lose in playoffs. Whitey Ford, Lefty Gomez, Ron Guidry. One thing, if I had to face like Lefty Grove or Pedro, and I don't think you're in charge of this, I would roll out 2 words, El Duque. Where's El Duque? They couldn't find room for El Duque? Like one game? I would put El Duque against anybody and roll with that.
You know what? If I had to make room for him, I could probably stand to lose. No disrespect, Mel Stottlemyre, Waite Hoyt. But I'll give you that. But listen, if you're looking at the Yankees, I don't want to get into the bottom innings and be behind because then they roll out Goose Gossage, Dave Righetti, Sparky Lyle, and Mariano Rivera. That is a shutdown bullpen. If you're down into the last 4 innings, it's over. You might as well just call the game after 5.
Mike, let's get to the National League. And this is something you mentioned. This is what I love about it, too. Some teams just blend together better through the history of the game. And I love the Reds position team. Rose, Morgan bench, the Big Red Machine, of course. But then to have Frank Robinson, I think most of us have an image of Frank Robinson with the Orioles because he's just more famous as a playoff World Series player with the Orioles. But Frank Robinson with the Reds was an all-time great who could really run. Ted Klaczewski and Joey Votto on that team. Wait, Eric Davis, like slipping a guy from the 80s. That might be I love the Tigers for that you had got Charlie Gehringer to Al Kaline to Cabrera. But I think this Reds team is almost the best blend of the history of the game.
It is a pretty fun one. The way I like to look at this roster is just start with the Big Red Machine, like arguably the greatest team of all time, or at least in the conversation. Take the Big Red Machine roster and add Joey Votto and add Barry Larkin and add Frank Robinson and Eric Davis. And not just, again, not full career Eric Davis, because he's one of those examples of incredibly talented guys who, got hurt, couldn't really put the Hall of Fame career together. But those 3 seasons in the late 80s when he was fantastic, that is the version of Eric Davis that you get. And it's funny because then the guys they have to push to the bench, there's no room for Tony Perez. There's no room for Adam Dunn and Vada Pinson on this. This is a incredibly stacked roster. And it's funny to see how they got there. In the previous round, they went to 7 games against the Cardinals, and George Foster hit a home run in the 12th inning of Game 7. Then John Franco locked it down. It's been pretty fun to see how this team got to this point.
That's a blast. And even the Dodgers roster, what jumps out they've had great teams for decades. Cody Bellinger and Gary Sheffield make the team. Sheffield is generally underrated. He's Hall of Fame level. Ron Say was a great player. And a lot of those players who were just sub Hall of Fame, Gil Hodges, Ron Say, and I mean, on the border, and Say was great in the playoffs. Obviously, Duke Snyder is underrated, I think, generally now too. But the pitching staff for the Dodgers, you'd mentioned, let's throw them up there because the Reds are throwing out an older Tom Seaver, Don Gullett, Jose Rijo. Dodgers have Koufax, Hershiser, Sutton, Fernando, Nuke, and Mike Marshall, I guess, is roaming high leverage, right?
It's insane. Orel Hershiser is the number 6 starter on this staff. Don Drysdale in this simulation rolls into the semifinals here with a 25-inning consecutive scoreless inning streak, which is fantastic. The Dodgers have allowed just 2.6 runs per game overall. When you look at the entirety of their roster here, kind of going back to what I said with the Yankees, you've got these long histories. You can go back to the early days of baseball. The Dodgers don't do that. The earliest Dodger, and I'm just kind of eyeballing this, is I think Pee Wee Reese, who came up around World War II. It's like they ignored the entire first half of the 20th century, and I'm not criticizing. That's correct to do so. The Dodgers really weren't that impressive for a very long time, and then obviously in the 40s, 50s, 60s, on and on and on. But all of this team has been drawn from just basically since World War II. Unlike the Yankees, where you've got your Ruth and you've got your Gehrig, and the Red Sox, you've got your Ruth. It's kind of fun to see that this is just a very different way for a historic team to get here.
Right. Dodgers were bad for a long time, I think, until Dolph Camilli, right? But yeah, they're actually not a great team until we got into that, golden era. All right, again, the MLB Dream Bracket, again, the semis or finals for each league coming up tomorrow. It's presented by DraftKings. Again, head to DraftKings. You can compete for thousands in prizes for free playing in daily pools. Now it's time to get to another game that's out there, but people can play this. This is a $1 million fantasy game called The Vault. You have until May 1st. So you have until, as we're putting this out there, until tomorrow. Fans can put in their predictions on who will lead Major League Baseball in 9 statistical categories from 2020, what's going to happen in 2020, to 2029. You can send your votes into MLB.com/vault. That's MLB.com/vault. Mike, you're good at this stuff. You didn't go, well, you went a little prospect-y, but basically you went with guys who are playing now. Give us your picks.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to try to look ahead. And I should say, I did this 6 weeks ago when I thought there might still be a full season, right? And that's obviously changed a little bit. But it was instructive for me to kind of look back to a decade ago and see who ended up leading for the ensuing decade. Nelson Cruz had the most home runs over the last decade. 10 years ago, we did not think of him that way. He was already a little bit older. He had not established himself. You really never know how this is going to go. So I went with, if we look at home runs, I went with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And my approach for this was obviously talent, right? But also youth. I can't pick a guy who's already 29 years old because I need the next 10 years. And I know Guerrero's first year was good. It wasn't great. I don't care if he's going to be a DH. Nelson Cruz is a DH. You know, if you look at how hard he hit the ball in his first year, the talent, obviously the pedigree, he had 3 of the 5 hardest hit balls of the season. He is going to hit the most home runs over the next 9.5 years or however this is going to work out.
So Guerrero, you have Vlad, they have Vlad Jr., Juan Soto, Walker Buehler, you're big on, and you go team wins and titles, Dodgers, and then the one where you go All-Star still Mike Trout. I think he'll be fine through 36, 37, right? And then, but Wander Franco, you think he's the most MVPs for the decade?
Well, I know it's nuts. I figured I had to go one that was objectively crazy because he's 19 years old, has not made the majors yet. So it's possible this is the one I look back on and I'm thinking like, oh, wow, what if I'd picked Billy Ashley in 1992? You know, like all these guys don't work out. The way I looked at it was obviously youth and talent. And as much as I love Mike Trout, it's hard for me to say he's going to win another 5 MVPs over the next 10 years. You know, he's not old, obviously, but he's nearing his 30th birthday. I can't remember a prospect as hyped as Wander Franco. The last one may actually have been Mike Trout or Bryce Harper. And, you know, if he stays healthy, obviously so much could go wrong. He's not played in the big leagues yet. He maybe not now this year. But if I'm going to go youth and talent and pick one like crazy off the board pick, I'm very happy with this one.
All right, we got to wrap this up, but I have my picks for you now, Mike. And basically, I'm going off you here, Brett. I went Ronald Acuna Jr., Juan Soto for hits, wins. I'm saying we don't even know what that is. 10 years from now, we're like, what did we mean by that?
I should have thought of that.
What would we even? You mean individual pitching wins? They'll say we don't even remember that, and so it's gone. Strikeouts, Walker Buehler. I'm going. I think team wins, Dodgers. I'm not going out on a limb to say the Yankees might win the most titles. I'll go Cody Bellinger for my most MVPs. He's not an old guy yet. And then Walker Buehler and Mike Trout. But wins 10 years from now. Come on, Mike. What were we even thinking?
I bow to the master. I wish I had said that.
There you go. Mike, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Nice baseball background. Enjoyed that.
Thanks, Brian.
Good luck with the kids. Good luck with the beard and everything else. Take care, Mike.
It won't be here next time I see you.
All right, take care.